My name is Dr. George Cherian. I am a pediatrician by training, but specifically I have looked after premature babies during my training. And I moved to Bahrain in 2009 from pretty close to Bahrain. I was with Saudi Aramco in Bahrain for 18 years. And I moved to Saudi Arabia from London, where I did all my pediatric training. And so for me, moving from Saudi Arabia to Bahrain was an easy transition, because while we were living in Aramco in Bahrain, over the weekends we used to come to Bahrain. So I kind of knew Bahrain. So for us, finally, when we took the decision to move to Bahrain in 2009, I think both my wife and I, we were happy to move into Bahrain. Moving to Bahrain from Saudi Arabia was a big change for us. Even though we were living in Aramco, where there was a lot of freedom in the Eastern Province, coming across the causeway into Bahrain was like moving into a country that was completely free. Particularly the Bahraini people were open, friendly, welcoming. And when we particularly moved in, and I moved in because of a job at the American Mission Hospital. So it was a completely different setting. And our experiences of settling into Bahrain, I would say, was possibly the easiest of transitions for us from moving from Saudi Arabia to Bahrain. For me, I had already had the experience of interacting with Bahrain and Bahrainis whilst living for 18 years in Saudi Arabia. And so for me to move from Saudi to Bahrain, as I said, was a very easy transition. Bahrain, when I moved in 2009, was still in its construction phase, and all the big skyscrapers that you see in the financial harbor was actually just coming up. Jufair was only half developed. And so driving around Bahrain, I must say, was so much easier in 2009, 2010 compared to driving around in Bahrain now. So we've had, and being in a hospital, I would say more than 60% of our patients are Bahraini. So interaction with patients with Bahrain was very close. A significant number of our staff are Bahraini, so interaction with the staff is quite easy. So for me, dealing with the people of Bahrain was not like a difficult transition for me at all, because I found that, being of Indian origin, moving into Bahrain was kind of moving into your own country with pretty much all of the cultures and flavors that Bahrain offered, very similar to my background. So it was easy. One of the common things for most expatriates, when you move to Bahrain or any country for that matter, one of the things that you look for is culinary similarities. The food that you like and the food that you can get in a new country. And I found that the Indian biryani or the Hyderabadi biryani is very famous. And I came to Bahrain, and I had a bit of exposure of that in Saudi Arabia as well. Your lamb kabsas and all of that is very similar to the culinary delights that we were used to. So for me, one of the biggest things that I found about Bahrain is, especially in American Mission Hospital, where we are in Manama, if you look at 1 square kilometers around that hospital, there are at least 100 Indian restaurants. And also there are very many Bahraini restaurants serving good Arabic food. And for me, one of my favorite foods in Bahrain, in Saudi Arabia, was the shawarma. So when I came here, it was shawarma Bahraini flavor. So for me, the choice was just too much, and we were spoiled with choice, with all the culinary differences of Bahrain. Now, when you talk about Bahraini culture, Bahrain, in the past was known for its pearl diving, Bahraini pearls, and so on and so forth. But I first came to Bahrain as a child in 1975. 1975, or much earlier than that. I think it was in 1965 when I first came to Bahrain. And the only thing that existed in Bahrain was the main Manama was there. And the reason why we came to Bahrain was my father worked for the oil company in Kuwait, and he had some tournaments happening in Babco. So I remember going to Awali and staying there in Awali. over a weekend. And so traveling from Manama to Awali was like traveling through a desert, and there was one small road connecting Manama to Awali. But now you travel from here to Awali, it's a completely different experience altogether. So I've got early memories, very good memories of coming to Bahrain as a small child, and now coming to Bahrain now, it's completely changed. When I first came as the Chief Medical Officer of the American Mission Hospital, and as you very well know, that the hospital has been here from the year 1900, and it had served the people of Bahrain by the time I came for close to 110 years. So like any new Chief Medical Officer of the American Mission Hospital, within 3 months of me coming to Bahrain, I had a formal meeting with His Majesty. It was a wonderful meeting, because I was initially told that the meeting would last for about 15 minutes, but I was with His Majesty for over an hour. And we talked all about the historic origin of Bahrain, and His Majesty made it very clear to me that the American Mission Hospital had served the people of Bahrain for 100 years. It was very close to the heart of the king and to the royalty, because in the olden days, the only hospital that existed, not just in Bahrain, but in this whole region, the GCC region, was this hospital. And the physicians from American Mission Hospital went to Kuwait, to Qatar, to UAE, and to Muscat to look after, the royal families there. So His Majesty is very proud of the heritage of the American Mission Hospital. So my first meeting with him was wonderful. And since then, I met him several times. My wife is here with me. I have 2 children, 2 sons. Both of them are grown up. In fact, both of my sons are physicians. One is an internal medicine doctor, and the other one is a gastroenterologist. And my elder son, he works in Ireland, in Dublin, Ireland, and my younger son, he works in the United States in Salt Lake City. So they are both well established in their practice. They visit Bahrain. Every year. They come to see us. And they love coming to Bahrain. I've got 2 granddaughters, 10 years and 8 years, and they love coming to Bahrain as well, because they said this place has got the best weather. The places where they live is cold most of the time, but they come here, it's sunshine, swimming pool, and it's a great life here. My special memories in Bahrain, one of the clearest memories, early memories of me in Bahrain, was when I was a small child coming to Bahrain for the very first time. Bahrain had the old airport, and I remember landing in a plane with propellers. We flew down from Kuwait to land in Bahrain, and I remember staying in Babco for a weekend in Awali. So that's my earliest memory of Bahrain, and we had a wonderful time there. My dad, he was playing in a tournament between oil companies. He was in the Kuwait Oil Company. They were playing with Aramco and with Babco. That's why all the families came. So while he was involved in the tournaments, the kids had a fun time, living in Awali. So that's my earliest memory. And my other good memories memories, I wouldn't say memories, I'm living it. It's not memories, I'm experiencing on every day, both socially, at work, meeting people at all levels, from the very ordinary people to people in the government, in the leadership of the country. So that interaction is very special for me. And one of the highlights every year at the American Mission Hospital, which I get to do, is to be involved in the Island Classic charity golf tournament, which is played in His Majesty's golf course, personal golf course. We are the only institution in Bahrain that His Majesty opens up his private golf course to go and play. So I've been here now 13 years, and every 13 years we are at His Majesty's golf course, and the marketing team does a wonderful job, and it's 3 days of tournaments. And this is to raise money for charity, so that the hospital can give charitable care for people who are poor. So that's a highlight of my calendar every year. My daily activities are completely consumed by, my work is quite busy, running the American Mission Hospital. We normally are very early risers. We wake up very early in the morning. And we go to bed also, early, because the work is usually very full. And for me, if you ask me what my main hobby is reading. I love reading. I read all kinds of stuff. So outside of my working, most of the time I spend reading. You can ask my wife. We don't watch too much television or movies. We really don't have time for that. And both of us enjoy fine dining. So for weekends, we make sure that we choose a very nice restaurant somewhere in Bahrain to go and have a nice meal. And that's how we relax. And then, of course, our travels takes us to different parts of the world, predominantly because my sons and my granddaughter lives abroad. So we take it every opportunity to actually travel abroad and spend time with them abroad. My position as the Chief Medical Officer of the American Mission Hospital, we have kept account of the different nationalities that have actually come to the hospital. And the count stands at 147 different nationalities have visited the American Mission Hospital during the time that I've been there. And so my job exposes me to multiple nationalities. However, the Americans are very close to us purely because it's the American Mission Hospital. So we are involved with supporting the State Department, which is the embassy here. Most of the embassies come to us for healthcare, which includes the Indian Embassy. So I've had a privilege and a honor to actually deal with all the heads of all of these embassies. And because of that, I get invited to a lot of the embassy functions, from the Indian Embassy to the US Embassy to the British Embassy. So there's a lot of social life involved in all of that, but it's not work, it's the fun part of it. My future plans are completely intertwined with the future plans of the American Mission Hospital. When I first came to Bahrain in 2009, AMH was a small hospital in Manama, and we had a small satellite clinic out of a rented villa in SAR. But today, American Mission Hospital has grown. We are the largest non-for-profit private hospital in Bahrain. We are on 5 sites. Each of the governorates, we have a clinic. So we have one in Amwaj, on the east side near the airport. SAR, we have one on the west side. Of course, we have one in Manama. Down south, we have one in Rifa. And now we've got a brand new big hospital, the biggest private hospital in Bahrain, now in Ali. So the operations have significantly grown. When I first came here, we had 300 employees at the American Mission Hospital. Today, we have 800. And by the end of the year, we will have 1,000 employees at the American Mission. So the real joy for me was to see the expansion of the hospital and how it impacted the healthcare for the people of Bahrain. So that's my greatest joy and happiness. The American Mission Hospital, as most people in Bahrain should know, was the first healthcare facility in the GCC. And it was established by the missionaries that came from the Reformed Church in America in the mid-1890s. The first American physicians came to Bahrain in the year 1900, and they oversaw the building of the first hospital in Bahrain, which was initially called the Mason Hospital, but subsequently named the American Mission Hospital. This was a husband and wife, a young medical couple that trained in the University of Michigan and then came across and started serving in Bahrain when the new hospital was first opened in January 1903. In fact, the history of Bahrain is very closely intertwined with the history of the American Mission Hospital, because we've been in the island of Bahrain for over 120 years. And if you look back at all of the development of Bahrain that happened over the last 100 years, the American Mission Hospital was a witness to this. If you go back to 1918 and 1919, when the first Spanish flu pandemic occurred in the world, American mission was around treating patients of Bahrain with the Spanish flu pandemic. When Bahrain got independence, American Mission Hospital was still around. When oil was first discovered in 1930, American Mission Hospital was still there. And what is interesting is the people who came to work at the American Mission Hospital then worked in conditions exactly like how the Bahrainis found themselves in. No electricity, a lot of malaria because of mosquitoes, and all of the hardships they suffered here for the first 40 years before oil was discovered. Then the region became rich and affluent. But the American missionaries who first came here, they also established an American Mission Hospital in Kuwait, one in Muscat, and the other one in UAE. So there were 4 American Mission Hospitals to start off with, but the first one was in Bahrain. And today, the only functioning hospital is also in Bahrain. The other 2 have closed. The development and the growth of the American Mission Hospital over the last 120 years was not a straight line. There were several challenges in the growth of the American Mission Hospital. The first major challenge that the American Mission Hospital faced was when government, hospitals were built, newer private hospitals came. No one wanted to go to a charitable mission hospital. So at one point in the mid-1970s, early 80s, the AMH Bahrain was almost to the point of closure. But the late Sheikh Isa, the King of Bahrain then, did not want the hospital to close because it had served the people of Bahrain for nearly 100 years, providing healthcare. So he supported the hospital. And so new management came in and the hospital grew. And I took over the running of the hospital in 2009. And over the last 10 years, the hospital has grown significantly. We are on 5 sites in Bahrain. Initially, we had American Mission Hospital in Manama. Then we opened up a satellite clinic in SAR, another one in Amwaj, one in Rifa, and now the brand new American Mission Hospital, Ali, has been constructed. And that is thanks to the generosity of His Majesty, the King of Bahrain. And this is why the hospital is called the King Hamad American Mission Hospital. The King Hamad American Mission Hospital in Ali, which is our newest addition to all of the other branches, is unique because it is considered a smart hospital. A smart hospital means it is technologically very advanced. Our IT systems are very futuristic. For example, if you have come on our elevators, you don't have to touch the elevators. All our elevators are touchless because of COVID. You don't touch and then get infected. The second thing you will notice that all our movements, services, food, beverages, laundry, waste, they're all automatically moved on auto-guided vehicles or robotic vehicles. And these robotic vehicles will actually call the service elevators automatically. You don't have to go and call the elevator for it. It automatically moves in from the basement to all of the floors, taking all of the stuff back and forth. Not only that, we have a central command station where we can monitor the vitals of any patient on any monitor in the hospital. We're also building up capability so that we can monitor a patient at home. So the patient can be at home, and if the patient has a medical device attached to the patient, we can monitor all of the patient's vital through a command center. And even before a patient knows that there is a problem, we will identify there is a problem and we can get to the patient. So there are lots of new facilities that has been inbuilt into the hospital. The big thing you will notice in this hospital is the hospital's design and concept is like a wellness center. You don't feel that you're in a hospital, but in a hotel facilities, because there is plenty of light, there is greenery, and all of the external environment is brought inside because it creates a very soothing, calming, healing atmosphere for the patient who are in the hospital. Most people come to the hospital, they're very anxious, but here the patient is relaxed. So this is a very unique hospital for Bahrain. The one last thing I would like to add is that this hospital is not just built for today. This hospital has got the capacity to expand into the future, both in terms of technology and digitization. Everything the future of healthcare will be is through technology and digitization, and we have all the infrastructure put in place for that.